we have gone through life pretty much unaware of the patterns, those things that keep on coming up that get us to behave or speak in the same way without actually that awareness to say, well, hold on a moment, does that really relate to this situation? Does that really relate to this conversation? And the myth busting part is really not saying that they don't have any value, but for us to be aware enough to understand where they are supporting us and where they are actually creating barriers, where they're getting in the way, where they're stopping our progress, where they're perhaps eating away at our confidence, and all of those things. And what we love to do is kind of share our own experiences of these phrases if they are applicable, but also where they've shown up in our work as well. So today we're looking at the over explaining, and maybe I've just over explained. I don't know.
No. Well, yeah, okay. Maybe we have that tendency to do that, especially after 3 weeks of not showing up live. We had to explain why. So maybe that was over explaining, but hey ho, sometimes we just have to do what we have to do and move on. And the first phrase that we're working with today is I need to justify myself. And yeah, it has definitely played in my life. Some part, definitely. I just find it harder and harder as I grow older to have to do that.
Mm.
I don't particularly like to justify myself. So there must be a reason behind this. But before I get into it, what about you, Yvonne? How does this, does this sound familiar to you or?
Yeah, I will say that in the past, definitely, that need to justify myself, that need to ensure that I'm understood, but not just understood. It's almost like going past that, because that's over explaining, right? It's not, okay, I understand, and then you stop. It's like, no, but let me give you a bit more, and then let me give you a bit more, and let me give you a bit more. And now it's like, okay, that's just more than enough information for me to get on with. And I think for me, that for me is there is a fear-based thing around that fear of being misunderstood. And actually, Hira posted on our Tuesday post about this, and she said, I used to think over-explaining was a form of consideration, and sometimes I still do. But looking back, it was often driven by a fear of being misunderstood or disappointing someone, which, I completely understood, and like I got that, and I was like, I've definitely done that myself. And a bit like what you were saying though, is now what I find is probably because I also have more clarity. So because I have more clarity, it's much easier for me to say X, Y, and Z and leave it with, and leave space for the person to ask questions if they misunderstand, instead of me overloading them with everything. Is if I say this, if they've misunderstood or something's not clear, I'm going to make sure that there's space for them to be able to ask that without judgment, without fear, without thinking, oh my gosh, I should have said that in the first place, I should have done, because I think that's what I used to do. If somebody asked a question from something information I'd given them, I'd immediately think, oh my gosh, I didn't tell them enough. Oh my goodness, I should have said this and I should have, then you kind of go into this almost like this judging of yourself, but also beating yourself up that, I should have done better. And that for me feeds very much into, your self-worth and then your value and yeah, creates a whole mess, basically.
It is definitely the case. And I think it stems from, how we're used to almost being there for everybody's needs before they even ask for anything throughout our lives. I mean, in a way that I'm talking about women, and how we like to, I don't know, I mean, if everybody's, and if it feels the same for everyone, but like, okay, I'll just say it as it comes in my head, and then anyone that has different idea, please let us know. But basically, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes or most times when you are bringing up children, when you are in a relationship, when your parents, your siblings, you, as a woman, you try to like make sure that they are looked after, they have what they need before they even ask it. And when it comes to justification, is pretty much the same thing. You want to justify everything to make sure that they don't have any more questions, or they don't have any more doubts, or I don't know
Yeah.
what that is. So there is a sort of a parallel there. Between them two, and that's
Yeah.
why like to me now, when it comes to justification, it almost has gone to the other side, because for me it's like, no, I don't want to justify. I don't want to justify why I'm doing an XYZ. And as you said, if I have to justify because we need to move forward with something, I will say what I have to say and then expect the questions, because somebody else, if there is like a partnership, or if there is a collaboration, whatever, they should also have um, like the interest to ask. They should also have the take the responsibility of what is and how, because as I was hearing you talking, also is that almost that I have to take all the responsibility myself, and that's why, oh, I should have justified this and that and the other, because otherwise how are we going to have the outcome that I want? So I think that's
Absolutely. Yeah. And I
just
think the other part is, I need to justify myself. It's just the whole over explaining thing for me is, who are you explaining to? Because depending on who you're explaining to gives you a sense of how much explaining you need to do. Like you were saying, if you're speaking to a child, there's a way and there's a process, and maybe there's more information that you want to give. And if it's an adult, and depending on the situation. So that for me is the awareness piece. When we start being more aware of what it is that we want to say, who is in front of me? Who am I delivering this to? How much of all of this do they really need to hear? And how much space around that do I want to give them to sit with it and be able to ask?
absolutely, absolutely. And also at the same time, it's like you need to give yourself the permission to be what you want, to act as you want, to give yourself space to
Yes.
process whatever it is that you're doing. Like when we over like analyze, or we want to justify everything that we do, then that definitely ties in with self-worth in so many forms and ways. And I think as we probably grow older, we understand that there might be connection there. So we need to question why we overdo it when it comes to justifying our actions, our thoughts, um, and even our opinions, and so on and so forth.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. As you were talking now, I was thinking of a client who, in the midst of a conversation we were having, I, and this is where it's important to be able to watch and read somebody's body language, is we were talking through something, but I could see her body kind of changing. There was a little shifting, a bit of discomfort. And it was just literally seeing somebody shift from, yes, I'm listening, to, oh my gosh, I'm like almost going into a state of overwhelm. Too much. So again, being able to observe and understand where that point is to cut off. And also, yes, like you were saying, to give yourself space. Like if I'm in a situation where I'm having to justify my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions, how much of that do I really need to justify? Why do I feel compelled to justify those things as opposed to just state them as a fact? I think this, I feel this, I see this, I hear this. That's my ownership. That doesn't mean to say there is any need for you to agree. That's just an ownership of what I'm saying. Whereas the justifying is like I kind of almost want you to I want you to agree with me. For me, that feels like a little bit of a call to, I need to give you so much information that you hear what I'm saying and that you sit on my side of the fence. I don't know if that's real, if that really comes through for everyone, but as you were talking, that's what came up for me.
No, it does. It makes sense, and also, there are so many ways that you can spin this, but
Mm,
you can over justify in order to overwhelm somebody into becoming just like accepting, because you can do that as well. So that is another way of justifying. But at the same time, as you said, there shouldn't really be that idea that you have to walk into a situation
mm,
justifying your every move or why you are doing the things that you're doing. And if the other person, as you said, it looks like they are getting too much information, you need to be able to read that, and you need to understand also, then reflect with what you're doing, and sit with what you're doing, because sometimes it might be that we're doing this so naturally that we don't understand, or we don't believe that we are over explaining things, but we do.
yeah. Yeah.
And like like everything, I think this needs a lot of reflection and a lot of time to understand how we operate, what our patterns are, and why.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to over explain because you want to ensure that somebody understands, is another thing to over explain because you feel that you need to make somebody understand why you need something. Two very different things.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why, again, this takes us back to the fact that when we look at these phrases, we are not saying they're wrong, they're right, they're good, they're bad. There's not a label. It's our awareness. And where is it coming up? Where might it be appropriate completely? And where might it be inappropriate? And actually, when we can slow down enough, pause is my favorite word, of course, and notice, oh my goodness, when I speak to that person, I tend to always kind of go on and give them so much detail. Do they need it? They may not say anything to you, but the question is, do they need that? So it's just an awareness thing and just saying, what is it that makes me feel that I need to do that? And does that still sit with me? Does that still feel, well, yeah, and I'm okay with that? Or actually, it's maybe I'm just feeling a bit insecure. Maybe I'm feeling insecure and I'm just feeling like I need to just keep on pouring this information out. That's something that I want to sit with and then do something about or with. And be able and do it with that much compassion and kindness, not beating self up, not now judging yourself. Oh my gosh, I always do it. They must think I'm this, all those other things that usually spin off. It's just being able to sit with it and just saying, okay, so I don't need permission to be myself. I don't need permission to be myself. And I can speak whatever it is I need to without flowering it over with 2 million layers of detail. And instead, depending on the person in front of me or people in front of me, create space for them to ask what they need to from what I do share.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I can see that being a much healthier way of approaching these type of patterns and yourself, I suppose. It is always hard. I mean, I think the hardest for anything is like just to allow yourself to notice the patterns. Once the patterns are like you are aware of the patterns, then it becomes much easier. The most important thing though is to look at them with curiosity, as we always say, not necessarily say, oh, now I realize I've been acting like this and shouldn't have, and blah, like, and then you start the shoots, which we don't like, and just see what it is with curiosity, and if you feel that still serves you, because even those myths that we are talking about, sometimes, I don't know, maybe some people might feel that they're still well serving.
Yeah.
So we stay, stay with it if it serves. But if not, it's time to explore. And
It's an opportunity to explore, right?
absolutely,
That's
yeah.
the thing. It's an opportunity. So it's what's the context? Who's the person, people? Does this still make sense or doesn't it? Because that's really, does it still make sense to do it this way or doesn't it? And
Mhm.
actually, and not rushing to even answer that, but to be able to sit with it. Because I think so much of this is being able to sit with yourself to think, okay, what that's something that I find myself doing a lot. What is it that either triggers me or that makes me feel that's appropriate? What is that? And again, like you said, do so with curiosity, not judgment. We're done with judgment. I mean, we are, as human beings, so good at judging everything. And quite often, all that does is add more layers of, I'm going to say, dysfunction, because it's how we start to feel about ourselves and how we start to feel about other people. And actually, if we do it through that lens of curiosity and exploring and with compassion, that's just a better place for yourself and for the people around you.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. And I think that this is a good time to move on to the second phrase that we are talking about today. And I think that this one needs a lot of unpacking. They think I'm difficult. They'll think I'm difficult. And therefore, I need to probably over explain so they don't think I'm difficult.
So
So,
so how has this shown up for you, Emily?
well,
If it
I
has.
I don't know. I mean, if it has, because maybe maybe I don't know. I mean, it doesn't ring true in my mind right this minute, and I can't think of any specific reason. I know that as a person I am a bit difficult, so maybe maybe that's the reason why I consider that the norm. So I don't believe that they will think I'm difficult. But yeah, that might be like some other judgment, like underneath there, towards myself. But uh, I think that it is this as a phrase, if it shows up, it has a lot to do with um, like your younger years in some respect. Um, like for example, when we are children, or when we've been children, somebody said, no, 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 you don't talk, you sit there, you listen, when you are disciplining your children, making them have manners, but like overdoing it in such a way that you are silencing them. And then
Mm,
as they grow older, probably this is something that will show up, because they'll think I'm difficult. In my mind, maybe I'm wrong. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It feels like, okay, if I express, if I tell the things that I want, it will not sit well with the person opposite me, or it will show that I am not agreeing or anything along those lines. So
Mm,
therefore, I am difficult. Or it is going to, in a way, show who I am.
mm.
So it's a lot there, I think, to unpack with this one.
Yeah. It's an interesting one. So, they'll think I'm difficult. So as the over explaining through the lens, they'll think I'm difficult is if I don't give them enough information, how I'm interpreting it. If I don't give them enough information, they'll think I'm withholding or I am being difficult or I'm going to try and make them work harder, depending again on the situation and the people and the person in front. And it's a little bit like managing other people's perceptions, which like, do you even know other people's perceptions? And now you're trying to manage them through the way that you communicate with them. And and this bears heavily to me on communication because I think the reality for most of us or in most situations is the more concise we can be with our communication, the better it is, as opposed to overloading. And that whole thing is, about managing other people's perceptions. So I need to tell them this because they might think this way, or I'll tell them this just in case they think the other way. And I better tell them that bit in case they think this other way. That's overloading. That is over explaining. That is pouring an awful lot. Where actually, what the situation may ask for is understanding or finding out how that person receives information and then being able to communicate with them in that way, which means you also have to have that communication ability to, oh, this person likes to receive information this way or this way, and then be able to deliver what your message in that way, making it concise, as opposed to assuming, well, I don't really know, so I'm just going to give them everything. There, right? And just pour everything out over people. Um, and that's what comes up for me when I think about this. I, from a personal perspective, it doesn't sit a bit like you were saying, it doesn't really sit with me. They'll think I'm difficult. That is just not a phrase that I have an affinity with. It doesn't kind of, there's nothing in my body that says, oh, yes, remember when? Nothing.
Ah,
But yeah, there's nothing that really comes up for me. But again, have I heard it? Possibly, maybe not the same sort of language, but yes, in terms of, if I don't give them all of the information, they'll think I'm withholding. I may have heard that type of phrase, as opposed to I'm being difficult. So I think it exists. I think it's around understanding that clarity is what builds respect, not over explaining, not just because I think there is this sometimes there is this thing about if I just keep on pouring more information in, the person will eventually get it, or they'll see that I know what I'm talking about, or do you know what I mean? There's a lot of things that can be attached to that, when actually just tell them what they need to know. Trust that it will land, and if it doesn't, then be ready to hold the space for them to be able to ask the questions they need. It goes back to exactly what we said with the first one. Hold the space to allow them to ask what needs to be asked. The worst possible thing is thinking I've thrown all this information at them. They need to now go off and decipher it. And if they come back and ask anything, you now have a problem with that. That becomes an issue.
for sure. And also in this day and age where information is like we are all suffering from information overload, being nice is a really a talent. It's like and also like out of everything that you're discussing, just taking out the bits that are important for whatever discussion you're having and sharing this only instead of, as you said, pouring more and more and more information with the hope that, okay, and now I have covered everything. When you don't really know what the other person might be missing, again, this is only your own perception
Yeah.
as to what they need. Um, and if you just keep telling them what they need and not being open to asking what they need, or like keeping the space, as you said, to hear what they need or ask the questions, you will never know. You just keep overloading. And I think this applies quite a lot also in business as well as personal lives, because I surely had managers that they were very big in sharing or thinking that they were sharing everything, and then creating like more chaos in the things that they wanted to communicate. So yeah, communication is key here. And I loved what you said, to trust that what you're going to share, or like concisely, will land, and whatever needs to be clarified later on, it can be. But when there is like this give and take
Yeah,
scenario just after that, so
absolutely. Well, communication, there is, it's never ever meant to be one way, right? This is communicating. The ebb and the flow, the in and the out. I say, you say, everybody contributes. Therefore, pour in what is necessary and then see what expands. How do we expand this? What do you need another ingredient? Okay, let me add that. But don't just pour all the ingredients in and one expect it to land for the other person, but for them to actually be able to absorb all of it. And when I have seen people over explaining in the past where I've seen it happen, and this is more in professional settings than personal, it's almost like the other person just glazes over. It's just like, oh my gosh. And almost like, am I supposed to remember all of that? So again, for me, it's that ability to watch people, observe, even as you're giving information, observe. What are you seeing? What's happening with their physiology? Because that will tell you whether you're giving them too much or not enough, even.
oh yeah, yes, I think that in our professions, naturally, we do get to practice a lot with seeing how people understand or process information. And I suppose we're more practiced in our professions because we tend to ask questions rather than giving information. So it is, I think, comes naturally for us. And like, I don't know about yourself, but I tend to do that even in my private life. In a way, okay, I do speak a lot, I have to say that, but you know, I do ask questions. I want to understand more how a situation can be better, or whatever is the scenario in any given time. What I'm trying to say is that, like, I think that anyone can benefit from just not overloading themselves or others with information, because yeah, we live in that era of infobicity, like some horn likes to say, and I love that word. And it's best if we just refrain
Yeah.
from doing the same.
Interesting what you just said about overloading others or self, because that's the other that is another kind of lens in is, I need to absorb all of this so that I can put it out here, and again, it's like, what is it that's making you feel that that is necessary? Now, that's something that I can say I absolutely used to do. I can, in my early days of like doing things like delivering training, I would just be consuming all this information, consuming so I could pour it out. And then I realized that's not really working. It's not working for them, and it's actually not working for me. So being able to, again, being observant and also listening to feedback and being open to feedback, and being able to be honest with yourself and actually say, oh, actually, I don't need to just do all this. Because again, in any of those situations, whether we're training, whether we're leading, any of that, it's not just about what you're pouring in, it's what they have to say, it's what the other person or people have to contribute. That's the mix, that's the magic. And so, like, something that I always like to say, and I've said it before, is that creating space, is that enough? Or do we need more? Do you need more? Or is there something you need to add? Creating space. And that for me makes so much difference. And also appreciating that space, because I think sometimes space is quiet, which lots of people don't feel very comfortable with. But sometimes it's the quiet that is required, not the pouring more in.
That is really true, and I love that. I love that about our work because if there is anything I learned within positive intelligence, I think it is that holding space and not holding space for just the others, but for myself as well. And there is a lot to learn in the quiet, for sure. It's just that we're not used to it, and that's why it is uncomfortable. And anything that we do outside this comfort zone is, it feels weird
Mm.
and not very welcoming. But it takes a little bit of practice, and then you really ask for it because it's like so much clarity comes from that space. So
Absolutely. And there's a bit of self-trust that goes in there, trusting the process, trusting yourself. And if it's involving other people, for them to feel, and comfortable is not necessarily the word, safe in that, well, actually, if we all sit here and say nothing for the next 5 minutes, that's okay. That there's not a demand, because that's what people have become used to.
yeah,
Demand, know now, do now, process now, etc., etc. And actually, what we're saying is instead of filling the space with loads of stuff and expecting people to ruffle through it and figure stuff out, it's create that breathing space. Okay, what of that has landed? What hasn't? What do I need to ask? That takes some breathing space. That just takes some breathing space. And that is something that we need to on board because we're not really taught that or encouraged to do that. Yeah,
yes.
that's my contribution.
I can't top that, Yvonne. So I'm going to just wrap this up with the announcement we have for next week. So next week we're going to come to you live again, but what are we going to do, Yvonne? Next week we have a surprise for them.
I don't know, you've thrown me in, Evie. What are we doing?
So it's going to be a special next week. We're starting July with something a little bit different. Just probably, maybe some of you have already seen some of the posts and what we're gifting everyone. And please go ahead and get involved. Start your journey. There is no need for emails, no need to give something back. Nothing. Just it's just because we both felt that there is this gap where people need to take a little bit of a break from their past lives and understand where they're at this particular moment in time and work from there. So, a resource that can give you a little bit of clarity and that starting point that you might be looking for.
Absolutely, yeah. And the penny has dropped now, by the way, so thank you. There you go. A bit of space and then it all comes back to me. So it's a reflection resource that we're talking about. Um, and we are going to share more about that next week. We're actually going to utilize it and bring what comes up for us to this live. and share that with you. And I guess the importance of it, it's not an assessment, because I don't know about anybody out there, but I am up to here with assessments. I'm, assessed, done. This is a reflection. This is for you to have some clarity about where you might be right now. So it'll be in the moment, that day, that week, that month, and what that might mean in terms of your input and your output.
Mhm.
And a month later, it may be something completely different. And I think that's why I love this particular resource that we're talking about, is it's not, you do it once and it's done. You can go back, revisit, and see if things have shifted in any way. And none of it is right or wrong, good or bad. And that I love, because it's really meant to be there to support you, for you to be able to have a sense of clarity about where you are.
And I think we need to add here that because we've been talking about space, in essence, it is like that trigger that hopefully will allow you to take a little bit, create a little bit of space for yourself to reflect and see what's coming up without overwhelm, because it's very soft and mellow and easy and spacious. That's another of Yvonne's favorite words. And yeah, let's catch
Let's
up
not
next.
over explain.
That's it. Let's not over explain for sure. It's been so lovely being here live again. I'm so happy.
It's good. It's good to be live again. And as always, thank you to anyone who has been watching this live, watches this on replay. I have to say, I'm looking at myself on the screen and I am so hot. If you're in the UK, you'll know that we're in the middle of some crazy heat wave thing going on. But anyway, I'm not making excuses and I'm certainly not apologizing or over explaining. I'm just really hot. But with that said, it has been a pleasure being here this week again, Evie, and thank you so much for getting everything sorted out. It's a joy to be partnering with you and collaborating with you. Always.
Same here. Thank you very much, Yvonne. Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.